you know, the old world that I came from, some of you can come from, is that if you bought insurance, you went to the insurance person. If you bought your mutual funds, you went to the mutual funds, stocks, and banks. That was the old world. Of course, this is the new world. This is a crowded marketplace out here. You know, the Bob Richards story. Clients can access financial services a lot of different ways, can't they? And the problem is how do you stand out in a very crowded marketplace? Here's one that really dates me. You know, when we used to have hockey, in between the second and third period, you know, they'd have this Esso commercial, and the theory was if you put Esso gasoline in your tank, your car ran like Tony the Tiger. I mean, it just was better quality, and it just was, and of course that was Esso. They were trying to put this point across. Now I don't know about you, but when I go to buy gas, I look at the 4 gas stations that are at the corner, and I figure out who's got the cheapest price, and that's where I go. I'm not thinking about that, because gas has become a commodity. What you don't want to be is a commodity as an advisor. You want to be able to differentiate yourself in this crowded marketplace and not be a commodity. So let's talk about that. Well, I think the first thing you need to do is have a solid new client development process that you can demonstrate to clients around how you help them make the right decision in their particular situation. So let me tell you a little story. Kevin Barks, an advisor with Freedom 55 in Perry Sound, Ontario, population 6,000, comes to me one day and he said, Art, I need to differentiate myself from the other Freedom 55 advisors, the other 5 in Perry Sound, Ontario, let alone the other financial advisors in Perry Sound. And I said, well, Kevin, I said, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to write down on a piece of paper all the steps that you take with a client, with a brand new prospect, to help that prospect make a good decision around their financial situation. He did. And I could see this glint in his eye as he was doing through this. And I said, Kevin, you've had this in your head all the time. And the problem is you haven't put it down on paper. And we then took that process. And Fortunato got a hold of it, and he did. I unfortunately don't have a graphic of his here in this presentation, but he did a graphic. And so Kevin isn't known as the Freedom 55 guy anymore. He's known as the guy that provides the gray heron process in his marketplace. And as I've reminded Kevin a number of times, I said, Kevin, you have no competition. No one else offers what you're offering. No one else offers the gray heron process. And you know, when clients are interviewing prospective advisors, and by the way, I hear about that happening a lot more today than ever before, that's what they're looking for. I had a client just recently, young advisor, and he said to me, you know, I got interviewed, and he said, I pulled up my process, I went through this, and I just knew I had them. I just knew they were with me. I knew I built the trust, built that gap. So if you haven't done this, you need to do that. Define your process, what makes you unique, use some graphics, make it a pleasing client experience, but write out the steps that you use to help clients make good decisions around the money. And a couple words that I like, you know, after I've done my analysis work, I like providing a draft report to a client. Doesn't feel like they're going to be sold anything, does it? Here's some samples here. Here is Barry Fowler. Barry Fowler's in Windsor, Ontario. And you know, Windsor hasn't exactly gone through a, you know, it hasn't been a great ride for them the last number of years, in case you've noticed. But Barry continues to shoot the lights out. But that's what he's selling. He's selling his foundation program. That's what Barry sells. And this is Manish Kanani. Manish is in Mississauga, and he sells the generation process. And this is Paul Tompkins in Toronto. Paul would be, I think, one of Manulife's biggest advisors. Okay, that's what Paul sells. That's what Paul sells. And it was interesting because Paul said to me, you know, I'm running into a lot of. You remember that formula, market times activity? Well, he has a big market. He has a good access to a very good market. And but he said, I'm running into a lot of banks where they can bring in, you know, the accountants and the lawyers and the wealth managers. And he said, I'm all by myself. I said, Well, I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to get this down on paper. And I said, this is what you're selling. This is what you're doing. This is your lead card. This is what makes it different. And so, if you do nothing else, leaving here today, write out the process that you use when you're in front of a brand new prospect to help them make decisions, and get it down on paper. So, here we are again. We're standing behind that desk, and we're trying to figure out, what am I going to do on purpose in terms of new client acquisition? And this is hard, okay? Because there's all sorts of things that can kind of get in your head and get in the way. But you've got to make this a priority. We've all heard of the advisor who can close 3 out of 4. The problem is there aren't enough 4s. Have you heard that expression before? Okay? Well, why is it? Why is it? Because the top half of the circle is where you are either successful in this business or you fail in this business. The top half is, do I have a prospect? Can I make an appropriate pre-approach to that prospect? Do I have a good approach to them? And can I ask the right questions to open up a situation, to open up a case? I found that once an advisor has a case open, doing the analysis, doing the presentation, doing the close, kind of follows. As I say, we all know a person closed 3 out of 4, the problem is there aren't enough 4s. And it's because of that top half of the circle. The other thing I've noticed, which really helps the top half of the circle, is the passion that advisors have. So Fortunato is doing some work with a fellow by the name of Joe Moffat out in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. So Fort says to him, well, Joe, why are you in this business? Well, Fort, it's like this. I was a teenager, my dad died prematurely, I became the breadwinner, I had to go to work. And he said, I don't want any of my clients to ever have to get into that situation. I want to make sure that I'm going through my process and helping them think through things that they wouldn't think on their own. And he then said to Forge, he said, you know, what I used to do is I used to take all the money and give it to my mom at the end of the month, except I kept just a little bit. And I'd go to the grocery store and I'd buy some blue whales. Guess what the name of his company is? Blue Whale. Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. Think that's going to trigger a conversation? We don't have water in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. What are you talking about, blue whales? But he's got a real passion. I have another client of mine who just went through an experience this year. One of his very, very good friends, young family, and he applied for $5 million of insurance. Most of the companies came back. One company came back and said, look, we'll give you 2. The premium's $4,000 a year, but you got to pay an extra $25,000 for the first 2 years. If you make it through the first 2 years, you can go back to $4,000. So my client is talking to his client and says, you know, I mean, this is a situation. They can never change the deal. If your health gets worse, they can never change the deal. I really encourage you to take this. The client never made it through to the second year. Do you think my client's got some passion about this business? Because he's made a big difference in that client's life. Bruce Field, another fellow from Sun Life, who Andrew, you'll know in the Oakville area. And Bruce is a very thorough guy around helping clients with their retirement planning. I mean, he just dots all the I's and crosses all the T's. TSFAs, revenue splitting, I mean, just does all the right things because he's very passionate about helping clients. And you know, we may think this stuff is simple, but if you're on the other side of the table, it's not that simple. There's a lot of stuff out there to kind of absorb, and so he really has become what I'd call a great educator, and he's very passionate about that. And I'll share with you how that passion's really made a difference in terms of Bruce's business. So I think having passion, and that passion around how can I help you, not what can I sell you, how can I help you? I found in my business life, if I can help people get to where they need to get to, I'll be okay. When I dealt with Manulife, of course, they always want to know how much production you're going to do this year, what do you do that? And I said, I have no idea. I just know that if I help my advisors, my clients, do better in their life in terms of serving their clients. And that was the mission statement and right outside my office door, was really ultimately helping the end user of our products and services and helping our advisors to do that we did just fine. And here we were in little old Kitchener, and we always competed with Vancouver and Toronto, and sometimes we get by them, sometimes they get by us, but it was because I think we were really passionate about the work that we're doing. So every morning when you get up and go to work, I think you got to think about, what am I doing today? Am I trying to sell a policy, or am I trying to help someone? And I think if you'll take that attitude, I'm trying to help someone, be amazed at how that'll come through with your clients. One of the things that is really important, a good exercise that we always start off a new client with, is identifying what your ideal client looks like. So I have a cottage up on Georgian Bay, and we can fish for deep fish like trout, rainbow trout, or we can go bass fishing. Well, it's a totally different procedure, tackle and everything else, with deep fishing versus, let's say, bass. And so I think understanding where your ideal client, what they look like, will make a heck of a difference in terms of understanding what are the strategies I need to do to attract those new clients. And then what does not work? Non-relationship building activities. Advertising, it doesn't work. Okay, TV, media, you'll get the odd one along the way. Seldom will they be an ideal client. I dealt with an individual, not in this province, who was spending $2 million a year on advertising. $2 million a year to make three. Okay, so he's making $1 million. Fair enough. But you know what? By his own admission, he wasn't getting the kinds of clients that he wanted. And one of my clients, did anyone ever go to this guy, Steven Anderson, Cold Call Cowboy, used to sell videos. And here was the deal. If you paid $5,000 for these videos, these apparently personalized videos, and you gave them to all your clients, guaranteed you would get referrals. Last I saw, you had 225 lawsuits going on in the United States. Guarantee wasn't worth too much. Okay, it's a non-relationship building activity. Whereas I think what you want to be focused on is relationship building activities, introductions from people who really value what you're doing, centers of influence, networking. I'll talk about that in just a minute.